Hello and welcome to today's training on how to master your job search and differentiate as top talent. I'm Diana YK Chan, and I'm so delighted that you're here. If you're here live with me today, please type in the chat room to say hello. I would love to see that you're here. So my intention for you, my intention today is to be of service and to add value. I'm curious to know why you're here. Share with me in the chat room of what's currently your biggest challenge in managing your career or job search. What do you need help on? I would love to make this as interactive as possible today and answer as many questions as I can, as I would love to hear from you. As many of you know that I've seen a lot of you in the last few months at Schulich, and it's going to be my last day tomorrow. So I'd love to answer any questions that you may have. So type in the chat room of what's your biggest challenge with your career and job search. Now, some of you may feel maybe in the stage where you're deciding what to do next in your career. You're in school and you're contemplating which career direction to take. Some of you maybe have been applying for a lot of jobs but not hear back from anyone at all. Or some of you may have been going through a lot of interviews and not closing yet. As a result, you may feel lost or confused of what to do next, or you may feel frustrated and annoyed of why you're not hearing back from the employers, or you just may feel a little defeated and have lost confidence of how to promote yourself effectively. So I'm here to help you today, to help you differentiate as top talent and land amazing opportunities faster. What you can expect from today is I will share with you a training presentation that I have prepared for you and then answer some questions at the end. My goal is to provide you insights on what it takes to differentiate as top talent and stand out as the ideal candidate, given my experience in recruiting. And I want to provide you a holistic plan on how to tackle your job search effectively. Okay, sounds good. So I would love to hear from you. Please type in the chat room. I see it on my other computer here. So tell me a little bit more about your situation. I invite you to take notes along the way to deepen the learning. I will share with you the recording of this training afterwards. I won't be sharing the slides though. So do take notes and let's have some fun together today, okay? All right, so let's dive right into the presentation. So just give me a moment to get it set up. Welcome to this webinar on Master Your Job Search and Differentiate as Top Talent. I'm your trainer, Diana YK Chan. So before we dive in, I want to introduce a little bit about myself. I'm a career coach, speaker, and trainer. I'm also a career advisor at Schulich. I founded my business, My Marketability, in 2011 with a mission to help ambitious professionals like you to gain career clarity, confidence, and a competitive edge to land amazing job opportunities. I've worked with hundreds of clients internationally to get competitive job offers at top companies, such as top consulting firms, top tech companies, top financial services companies, and top CPG firms as well. I have over 10 years of experience in recruiting, training, coaching, and speaking. I've recruited for companies like Google, Ivey MBA and Executive MBA admissions. I also worked at a recruiting agency at Fish Recruit, where I recruited for J&J, AstraZeneca, and many more companies. So I have pretty good insights on what it takes to stand out to an employer. Prior to that, I also worked as a management consultant at Accenture, and I was at TELUS in marketing, operations, and training. So I have made multiple pivots in my career, and I would love to share with you some insights on how you can do that as well. I did my undergrad and MBA at the Ivey Business School, and I was recognized as one of the top 15 job search experts to follow on LinkedIn recently. So if we're not connected yet, I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for your message here, and I see that you're sharing with me some information about you. So I heard one of the challenge is preparing with the right interview questions. I know general questions, but how or where can I find those role-specific interview questions for an operations business analyst intern position? Okay, so I'll answer some of that later on. Thank you. Continue to type this in the chat room there. Okay, let's just make this as interactive as possible. Okay, so here's my agenda of what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about what is career fulfillment, how difficult is it to make a change in your career, the 4 key pillars to getting hired faster, how to differentiate as high potential talent and the ideal candidate, the Magnify Your Marketability Strategic Framework. This is the framework that I walk all my clients through when I work with them together for like 3 or 4 months. The 10 steps to develop an effective job search plan. And within that, I'm going to cover some key tips for resume, LinkedIn profile, networking, and interviews. So it's a very comprehensive, holistic training that I'm going to provide you today to help you the big picture so that you have a plan to get started. Okay. So career fulfillment, what does it mean to you? Right? What does success and happiness mean to you? Here are some things of how I want to define career fulfillment. It's doing work that you're great at, that's leveraging your strengths, where you're passionate about, where you're well paid to do, that honors your values of what's important to you, that you find it meaningful, that calls to you, that inspires you, that challenges you, where you get to learn and grow. And lastly, that makes a difference. That's what career fulfillment is. So next, I want to talk a little about how difficult is it to make a change. I've met many of you where either because you're completing your master's or MBA and you're contemplating whether to stick with what you've been doing before or whether to make a significant change. And I just want to talk a little bit about the different types of change and the challenges you may face and things that you need to pay attention to. So here's like a 2x2 graph that I came up with here. Essentially, the vertical is the industry and the horizontal here is a career. So here's a 2x2 box. So the first change is what I call the same career, same industry. This is the easiest change to make because essentially you are doing what you've been doing in the past and sticking with the same industry. The challenge you may face if you're, say, an international or you're moved abroad and you don't have a network, but if you do have a network here, you can really just tap into the existing network. This is also a time, if you already have some experience, you can also really leverage connecting with headhunters, recruiters, because oftentimes recruiters like to connect or find professionals who already have that relevant experience within the industry there. So this is typically usually the easiest change to make. This is where you can really also tap into your existing network as well. The second change is what I call the same career or changing industries. So for example, let's just say your profession is marketing and you're looking to go from telecommunications industry to financial services. That's quite typical, where you may have found that you've already grown and learned a lot in this particular industry and you want a new challenge. So you decide to change a new industry here. So the challenge here is that you may not have a network in that industry. So what you need to do is really build a new network and find people in that network to learn more about the industry. A lot of times what you need to probably learn about is the industry lingo, the trends and challenges. Now, if you're moving into a profession that doesn't really require a lot of industry expertise, it may be easier. So I'll give you an example. I had a client who was an HR professional, HR business partner at P&G. And she moved here to Canada. She had trouble landing something. And when we worked together, we really worked on her value proposition. And eventually she made a change in industry to a company like TELUS. So going from CPG to telecommunications. So having the industry expertise is not as important just because she was in HR. So what's more important is the HR knowledge there. So what's important here is, at the end of the day, it is definitely, talking to the right people who really value your area of expertise, who understand your profession and would want to refer you into a company there. The third type of change is what I call changing careers, but same industry. So for example, you may want to go from operations to marketing within the tech industry there. So essentially because you're making a profession change, what you want to demonstrate is what are those transferable skills that you have or the transferable knowledge. Here you also, if you're making, because you're making change, like say a different department, you may want to find someone who may be an advocate of yours who really have seen you perform, where they can really speak about your leadership capabilities, your communication skills, your relationship skills as well. Okay. Typically in this, if you can leverage either getting promoted from within, that would be a good idea as well, or you reach out to recruiters within those companies that you're targeting there. The last change is the hardest change to make. This is where you change careers and change industries. This is where you can expect it's going to take the longest time. And this is typically where oftentimes when you are pursuing additional education, such as your MBA or your master's, it's a great way to leverage to make this significant change. It is possible, it just takes more time. So I'll give you an example. I had a client a couple of years ago. She was a sales engineer for like 18 years. In the tech industry. And she decided that she wanted to become a career coach. So something what I do now. And that's a significant change from being a sales engineer to a career coach. So what she did, and actually took her 3 years to prepare for the change, was she actually went back to school for career coaching certification and did a bunch of other certifications in coaching as well to prepare. And then she hired me to help her market herself to make that change there. And then ultimately, she joined a career outplacement firm, a big company with like Knightsbridge, to become a career transition coach. So my point here is that you got to get creative. Like with a change like this, you got to think about, well, what kind of maybe additional education do I need? What kind of networking do I need to do in terms of what kind of people I need to meet, and understand even like what is like the salary expectation? Do I maybe need to take a lower level job to get my foot in the door? This is where a lot of informational interview comes in when you're looking to make a change in your career and changing industry. So doing your due diligence and research is so important in this phase. And I'm curious to know, like, which phase that you are in terms of, are you looking to make the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 changes? Just to be aware, the more significant change it is, the longer time it's going to take. But it's certainly possible. I had a client many years ago. He was an MBA grad. He was in the public sector, and he was a campaign manager for politicians. So essentially it's marketing, right? Marketing politicians. Essentially that's what he did. And after his MBA, he really wanted to move into the tech industry in a product management type role. So that's a significant change when you think about the industry going from public sector to tech, a much faster paced industry in a different area. And the way he got in, it took him at least a dozen interviews or informational meetings with that one company at TELUS to him to get in. Like I referred him, he got his friend to refer him, and the person I referred him as well. But he also did tons of preparation. Like he was so passionate about the industry that he read about all the trends and challenges and opportunities in the book and learned everything about the company. So when it came to the interview round, like he was able to not only speak passionately about it, but intelligently about it as well. And so he was able to demonstrate that he was a quick learner and can get up to speed quickly. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking to make that significant change, what's the extra prep work you need to do to give yourself that competitive edge? Oftentimes, like having also that character reference is going to make a huge difference as well, because people are more likely to hire someone that they have endorsed and believe that they have that potential and what it takes. Okay. So I hope this helps. This is something I really want to point out because I've met a lot of you who are looking to make different types of changes. I want you to be aware, the challenges you may face and things that you need to tap into there. Something I want to point out, if you're looking to make that number 4 change, tapping into like headhunters, like recruiters, would not be the best choice, because oftentimes as a recruiter, they want to talk to people who have the relevant experience there. So it's best to actually do information interviews with like the hiring managers or people who are hire in that space. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what can you leverage to support your career transition? So meaning, what can you leverage in terms of your knowledge, skills, experience, and expertise? What do you have? Like, what is your greatest strength? That's what you really want to think of, how you can connect the dots to help you and convince and tell the employer the story of why you would be successful in this new profession there. Okay. All right. So the next is the 4 key pillars to getting hired faster. Okay, these are what I call my 4 M's. These are the 4 key pillars to keep in mind when it comes to tackling your job search. This is based on my experience having worked with hundreds of people one-on-one. Number 1 is the mindset. So this is all about your beliefs, how you see yourself. Do you have that winning attitude? that you have what it takes. It is so important that you state these positive affirmations that you believe that you have what it takes. I once had a client many, many years ago. He was getting tons of interviews, but not the offers, and he was not sure why. And when we met, as I talked to him, I got to know him. I asked him, like, what's his intention going into an interview? Instead of going to an interview where you are, but you believe that you're the winning candidate or the ideal candidate, his attitude mindset was, oh, I'm just going to go in the interview for them to find out what's wrong with me. That was his mindset. And shortly after I worked with him, he changed that. He instantly got hired afterwards. So it's really also the attitude of how you show up that employers can get the vibe and feel that whether you are really confident with what you have to offer there. The second piece is the messaging. So this is all like the communications in terms of how you communicate, how you pitch yourself. Is it consistent? Is it compelling? Is it clear? You want to make sure everything ties in, from the way you communicate in interviews, in networking, your LinkedIn profile, your resume. Everything should tie together. So you got to really look at your overall personal brand. What do you really want to be known for? And what are the consistent themes, keywords, key examples that you want to share over and over again so that it really resonates with the employer? The third piece is the marketing. So the marketing is really key when it comes to the job search. You have to promote yourself. You have to put yourself out there to be known. So if you're just relying on applying for jobs online, that is a very passive approach. And studies have shown, like, the chances of getting an interview is usually like less than 5%, like usually 2 to 3%. So it is so important for you to think about and get creative of how you can market yourself effectively, such as using a very powerful platform like LinkedIn, where you can engage in talking to people, network with people, posting articles to share your thought process. Especially if you're in school right now and you're looking for opportunities, it's a great way to share insights by typing out a blog post of what you're learning or the key steps to really showcase your thought process there. This is where all the marketing comes in terms of making sure, like, all your marketing collateral is very compelling and consistent across the board. Okay, so I really want to encourage you to get creative here. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, this was actually an undergrad who really wanted to work for a top advertising agency. And this was many years ago when Facebook timeline just came out. He actually created like a resume using like the Facebook timeline there, and he tweeted it to the CEO of this ad agency. Literally the next day, he got a call for an interview, and he got hired to work at the Hong Kong office for an internship. So he got really creative with his marketing and really demonstrated his interest in social media. So I want to really encourage you things that you can do to get people's attention as well. When I was at Google as a recruiter, I've received many different types of creative resumes or proposals, you can say, like people doing videos or someone sending in like cupcakes just to get people's attention there. The last M is meeting people. So as part of the job search, a lot of times, a lot of you tell me all you've been doing is applying online. And the big key to success is networking, meeting people. Because the more people you know, the more you increase your visibility. When you have more visibility, you also have more opportunities coming your way as well. So putting yourself out there, being proactive is absolutely key to accelerating your job search success. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for saying hello in the chat room there. So the takeaway here is you got to think like a marketer. You are the product now in putting yourself out there as a job seeker. What makes you interesting? What will pique people's curiosity? What's the story that you want to tell about yourself? And so put your hat on as a marketer. Remember, features tell, benefits sell. This is a very common saying in sales. So you're also like pitching yourself as well. Think about, what are the benefits in hiring you? Why should the employer buy you? What problems do you solve? So when I talk about the benefits, it's really like, why you? It's not just about the fact that you have these strengths or you have this experience. You really need to look at it holistically, comprehensively, basically the X factor, The combination of your strengths, skills, knowledge, experience. What are the benefits of that? What can you do for the employer? So think about what they care about, whether you can solve problems faster, whether you can help them identify a new opportunity, whatever that is. Put in that tense of the benefits to an employer and what would make you an attractive candidate. Okay, so this is a very important question. I really want to challenge you. It's not just about I have X years of experience. It's like I have X years of experience and I'm able to create this da 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 da, or I'm able to help you increase sales by 50% if you're in sales. So really think of that value proposition of yours there. Okay, so oftentimes when I prepare for interviews with candidates, this is like really the piece if you really want to close that interview is getting really, really clear on the benefits in hiring you. And this is something you want to hone in consistently as you pitch yourself. So what are the signs of high potential talent? This is based on my experience as a recruiter, having worked for some top companies, what it takes to really stand out as that high potential talent. Even if you may not have all the experience, but how do you really stand out? So the first is progression in your career. As a recruiter, they really look for how have you progressed in your professional career. So whether it's increased responsibilities or you took on bigger scope of work, progress in terms of your leadership capabilities. These are things that you want to be able to demonstrate there. The second is performance. So this is all about your track record of success, your results. They want to know whether you are a high performer, whether you actually delivered results for your employer. And this is why for your resume, you really want to make it as tangible as possible. You want to avoid the fluff in just communicating your responsibilities, but you really want to talk about your performance. Were you recognized as the top 10, 15% at your company? Did you receive any awards or recognition? These are things that you really wanted to highlight to showcase that you are a high performer. Okay. Or even think about how did you help the employer add value, whether it's if you're in marketing, for example, increase market share, increase sales, whatever that is that you want to be able to highlight. This is something really important. Like when I worked at Google as a recruiter, I had to write a business case to justify why they should hire someone. And these are the things that I had to really identify to convey that they are high potential talent. The third is promotions. So employers love to see whether you have promotions because that's also a sign of high potential. So for example, if the regular track to get promoted takes 3 or 5 years and you're on a fast track career path where you got promoted within a year and a half or 2 years, tell them about that. Or if you were the youngest ever to get promoted in this job, let them know as well. Because that's a great way to differentiate. As an example, back when I was a recruitment manager for MBA admissions, I was the youngest ever to manage a recruit for the executive MBA program. And that's something you really want to highlight, that they've never hired someone that young to come into a role like this. The next is polished. So this is about how well you show up in terms of how you dress and how you communicate. Do you sound confident, articulate, persuasive? Do you look sharp? These are all signs also of high potential talent because it's also a sign of whether you're confident about your own capabilities as well. And this ties in terms of how well prepared you are as well. The last piece is professional. This is all how you carry yourself. Are you respectful to others? Do you sound professional the way you communicate to others? So it's a whole package of how you present yourself that will make you stand out from the rest. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. These are just a summary based on what I've learned as a recruiter and having recruited for some the top employers there. So how do you stand out as the ideal candidate? So here are some tactical tips of things that you can do to stand out. First is obviously to do your research and be well prepared. Okay. Employers can tell whether you're well prepared. I've talked to a lot of my friends who've done hiring. They know when someone's prepared or not, just by the way they respond to their questions. So doing research means like you got to know about the industry trends, knowing about the company's culture, the business, the products, the department, everything. You want to do your due diligence to get those insights. And so not just being well prepared in your interview answers, but being well prepared in all the external research that you need to do as well. Okay, because this will impact the way you talk in your conversation, whether you can have a conversation and really talking about business and showcasing your business acumen as well. Second is to showcase you understand the roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So this is not only you want to read the job posting, but this is where you want to talk to people about the job itself, whether it's someone who's done the job before or someone who's part of that team, or if you can get a referral just to talk to someone to really understand the day-to-day responsibilities so that you can really highlight some of the examples when you're talking about your relevant experience and skills. Third is you want to be confident in your abilities and know what it takes to be successful in the job. So this is really like the deliverables, right? Like what does it really take to be successful? And that when it comes to, if they ask you the question, what's your 30, 60, 90-day plan, or what are you going to do this year? You can clearly articulate some ideas because you really understand not only their expectations, but like what do you really need to deliver to excel and stand out as a top talent candidate. Fourth is that you want to demonstrate you have the relevant knowledge, skills, and experience. So typically, as a recruiter, this is the first thing that they look for is, do you have the relevant knowledge, skills, and experience? If you don't, then what else can you demonstrate that will make them comfortable or confident for them to hire you? Next is you want to provide strong evidence of support. So this is like really that concrete, relevant, tangible examples that you can use to really showcase you've dealt with something similar before so they have confidence in you. Connect the dots of how you're able to add value in the role. This is so key. So oftentimes, I see a lot of times people will talk about their experience, but they don't really connect the dots. So this is really bridging the experience you have to the role that you're interviewing for. And in order to do that, you really need to understand these things we talked about earlier in terms of understanding the business, understanding the role, understanding what it takes in order to really start building that business case. Essentially, when you're going for an interview, you are building a business case of why you. You want to give them a sense that you're smart, quick learner, and great to work with. Okay. So this is through, showcasing your intelligence, the way you carry conversations, the way you talk about the business, about the trends and all that. Okay. And the way you connect with people. So these are some top tips of what to keep in mind to stand out as the ideal candidate. I'll give you an example. I had a client a couple years ago. He wanted to make a significant change from working at a small ad agency in digital marketing, and he really wanted to get into a big name company there. And he knew he had to do a lot of work to make this significant change. And he did a lot of preparation. He actually reached out to over 100 people in the telco industry and talked to about a dozen of them. He actually visited the stores to learn about the products because the role he was interviewing for was in loyalty retention and customer experience. So he really even did his research in retail as well. And as a result, he actually got a referral through me as well that really expedite the process. He not only just applied online, but he was able to go through what I call the back channel, back door to get a referral. And through that, this person referred him to the hiring manager. And he literally got an offer after his case interview. And he's never done a case interview before. But he was so well prepared and really showcased his passion that he really wanted. He was hungry, and it showed that he was a quick learner. It really made him stand out from the rest there. Okay, so I really want to challenge you to think about what are some things that you can do to take it to the next level, to make yourself stand out. So next is I want to walk you through my Magnify Your Marketability framework. So this is a strategic framework, a process I walk my clients through when I work with them. And depending on what stage, you may have to spend some time, more time in particular areas as well. So the first step is discovering your essence. So this is all about learning about you, who you are, what you want, what's important to you. This is really that clarity piece. It's the foundation of your success. So it is so important to do this work. especially right now, if you are in that career transition phase, you're in school and you're graduating soon, or you're trying to figure out what's next, get really clear on this, because when you're not clear, it will show in the way you communicate. You won't come across as confident or compelling either. So this is the first step. The second is then to define your personal brand. This is really understanding what makes you unique, what makes you marketable, what's your value proposition based on knowing who you are. Okay. The third is to really determine the market need. Okay. Based on what you want and what you have to offer, what's in demand right now. And this is where you have to do your research to understand what type of roles are in demand. So for example, right now, like it's really hot, the market for roles such as analytics, e-commerce, customer experience. These are some of the roles, as an example, are really in demand. So how can you really articulate your value proposition to meet the need there? Fourth is to develop your marketing plan. So this is really your game plan for your job search and networking, and how you're going to tackle all your marketing collateral to make sure it's very compelling across the board as well. So this is like a big piece I'll cover a little later on when I walk you through the steps to take in creating your job search plan. And the last piece is deliver your message. So this is all about the interview prep and practice. This is about being strategic and telling your story in a way that it's interesting, inspiring, and impressive. So this is all, if you look at it, the big picture overview of how to really increase your marketability to stand out. Is if you walk through all these stages here, you will have a lot of clarity, a lot of confidence, and you'll come across much more compelling and convincing as well. So that's the big picture framework. And this takes time. Like just from my experience, like I work with a lot of clients privately, one-on-one, usually takes about 3 to 4 months to land something and to even walk through like getting to know yourself and getting through your whole story. So if you're in that phase of job search where you just right into updating your resume and applying for jobs and haven't done much reflection work, I really encourage you to do some of that, because that's really going to make a big difference. Okay. Okay. So how to develop an effective job search plan. This is where I'm going to walk you through my 10 steps there. So I will be answering questions later on, so feel free to type them through as you go in here. I do sequence some questions coming in. I will definitely answer them. Okay. All right. So feel free to take notes, because here I'm going to walk you through 10 steps. This is a high-level plan there to help you. First step, discover your essence. So what we just talked about, the career clarity. Who are you? What do you want? Why do you want what you want? This is all about your motivation. Employers want to know that, right? Like if you're looking to make a change, why are you looking to make a change? If you're pursuing an MBA or master's, why? And why are you looking to make this pivot at this point in your life? What makes you unique? What's important to you? Okay, so these are the things that you really want to ask yourself. I know they're big questions, but if you can answer these, it's going to really be very compelling when it comes to interview prep. What does success and happiness mean to you? Right? Getting clear on that. Like, what's that career vision that's going to give you that career fulfillment there? This is going to help you create what I call your evaluation criteria when you evaluate opportunities as well, right? As much as that you're looking for something, you also want to make sure it's a great fit. It's going to align and give you the lifestyle that you want, and that's going to make you happy as well. Okay. So that's the first step. And this phase, I'll tell you, the step could sometimes take lots of time depending on when you are. Like I have met many of you, some of you who are just really lost and you're graduating, have no idea what to do next, which means you're not really quite even ready to tackle the job search yet, because you're in that phase 1 of step 1 here, where you really need to spend more time on this. And I encourage you to take time. There are many books out there that you can read to help you uncover this, or working with a career coach to help you dig deep into this space there. Step 2 is to determine what you are searching for. So this is really getting clear on your target. So identify your targeted ROIs, what I call the roles, organizations, and industries. Target only 1 to 2 industries. This is because each industry you target is what I consider one search effort, meaning if you have 2, you got to double your job search effort, just because they're different industries, which means you have different things to learn about in terms of the trends, challenges, and opportunities. So target only 1 to 2. that I recommend. And then you want to create your list of 25 plus companies per industry to target. Okay, you need at least, 25 to get started. And then I recommend to only pick 1 to 3 relevant job areas to focus on. So for example, let's say digital marketing, brand marketing, consumer insights. They're all relevant in that similar area. Now, if you're interested, for example, I've seen some people who are interested, say, in marketing operations. That could be the case. So you want to see what the relevancy is there. So as an example, I recently met someone who's interested in really like the customer experience, customer journey, customer success. So that could tie into operations, and it can also be in marketing as well. Okay. My point here is that you need to have a very clear target, because if you're not clear on your target, you're going to lose focus with your search, and you're going to be all over the place. And when it comes to talking to people, it's not going to be effective. Okay. So put together a spreadsheet of all these companies that you're targeting, put together all these keywords as well, because it's going to also help with your search, and it's also going to help you update your profile as well. Okay. So this is like really the plan. Like I want you to think about it. It's going to really get you that competitive edge. Okay, if you do this kind of work, it's not just having like, oh, I know my top 5, 10 companies, but it's actually, once you have this list of companies, you want to do your research as well. Okay, which is really the third step, doing your research, right? This is the external analysis where you want to find out industry trends, organizations that are hiring, the culture of the company, role hiring requirements, like what does it take? What are they looking for? So you can tailor your messages, type of problems to solve. These are things you really want to find out. Salary range, really understanding what the range is. So go onto websites like glassdoor.com to find out what the range is as well. Okay, these are all the external analysis that you want to do to help you. Like what I recommend here is think of coming up with like an insight report at the end. Like once you've done this research, put together an insight report. I like to recommend, put together what I call top 10 interesting things about this industry or company. So this is going to help you when it comes to networking or interviews, that you have some sound bites that you can talk about and showcase your point of view and what you found out. Okay. So yeah, document some of these things. Step 4 is to decide on the methods of your search. Okay. Such as, do you want to just rely on job boards? This is the most common one. I would say 90% of you are relying on job boards. But you also want to use a tool like LinkedIn. It's a very, very powerful tool right now. Over 90% of the Fortune 500 company recruiters, big corporations, all use LinkedIn now to search for talent. When I was a recruiter at Google, this was like over 8 years ago now, I was using LinkedIn already to search for my talent there. Social media, industry events, networking or coffee chats, and referrals. With referrals, you are 5 times more likely to get hired. So I really want to encourage you, what's your method of your search? I know majority of you are probably it is at 80-90% is focused on the job boards, but this is what I call, it's more passive, because oftentimes before the job posting is even posted, oftentimes employers, or they would have already gone through the internal search or referrals. So you want to really be proactive, especially if you're not graduating yet and you still have a long way to go to find that full-time opportunity. This is where you really want to do these networking coffee chats to nurture those relationships and eventually get a referral. Okay, so you see that as a long-term game plan there. And so you want to be really strategic about it. Okay. Step 5 is you want to develop your career story. So this is something that I work with many of you a lot, because at the end of the day, you're always talking about yourself. So what's your professional career story? You want to make your glowing introduction, which is your elevator pitch, sound interesting, inspiring, and impressive. And this takes time. You want to talk about your interests, strengths, skills, experience, accomplishments, and unique value to stand out. Okay. If you have not mapped this out, I highly encourage you to do this. I've seen many of you, and oftentimes when I ask you, tell me about yourself. So how would you introduce yourself to a potential employer? Many of you have not figured out how to tell your story in a way that piques interest or that sounds impressive. So this is like a homework that I really want you to do to make sure you have a strong elevator pitch. Keep it to 2 minutes within 260 to 300 words there. So here's a little bit more specific on how to write your glowing introduction. This is my 6 piece framework. I've taught this many times. I actually have a webinar, a short training, a 15-minute training on this where I go more in depth, but here's a summary. Step 1, share about your passion and potential. So this is like, what do you care about? What are you really good at? So this is a great introduction to set the stage and theme of who you are and what makes you amazing. Step 2 is that you share about your past experience and proud accomplishments for credibility. So summarize your experience in terms of your expertise and knowledge, and talk about 1 or 2 proud accomplishment that is relevant to what you're targeting. Step 3, share about your present situation and purpose. So now that you've talked about your past, you want to then bring it back to your present. Like, where are you now in your life and career? Are you just finishing school? Are you in this career transition? What are you looking for now? Purpose is your why. Why are you interested in making a change? Why are you interested in this area? Why this company? And ultimately, why you? If you're going for an interview, you really want to talk about like, why do you believe you'll be an ideal candidate? Okay. So you can go onto my YouTube channel if you want more training to check out the Master Your Story webinar training, which is only about 15 minutes long, that I go more in depth about this. All right, step 6 is to develop your resume, right? So now that you got your introduction, then it's to update your resume. So I want to give you some just quick high-level tips as well on your resume. I know a lot of you come to me for feedback or advice. Feel free to ask me questions as well, but here's just some quick tips there. First of all, you need to tailor your resume to the hiring need. At the end of the day, if you can tailor it to what they're looking for using the right words, the stronger it's going to be. Keep it to 1 to 2 pages long, maximum 2 pages. So if you are someone with about less than 5 years or even 7 years experience, keep it on just 1 page. If you're going to do 2-page, do like the 2-page fully, meaning don't do just 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 page. It just doesn't look as complete or professional. So you're going to have to be ruthless if you really want to keep it to just that 1-page resume there. I know that oftentimes employers do prefer the 1 page if you're, especially in school, especially if you're in undergrad or master's program, they really prefer that. But if you have a lot more experience there, the 2-page is also great, but just make sure that you make it look full as well. Okay. Make it a marketing document to stand out, right? So it's not just a history document or responsibilities document. Make it a marketing document. Like when you think about brochures and flyers, like how can you make it stand out as well? So you see here on the right here, there is an image. Like this is like a sample resume that one of my client did. So you can add a little bit of design. You don't need it to be super fancy. Add a little color just to make it more modern and fresh as well. So not just like a traditional resume. I have seen a lot of you create resumes from Canva where it's like a 2-column type of resume. I'm not a big fan of those just because from a screening perspective, the eye, when recruiters look at it, it's hard to screen. And also it does not scan well in the applicant tracking system. So the online system, when you're applying for jobs, the way it scans, it goes from left to right, top to bottom, right? So when you have columns and tables, they don't register well in the system there. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Perhaps you can have more like a plain black and white version to apply online, and then have a more creative, modern, colorful version when you are submitting through email or through networking. So here are the principles to keep in mind. Number 1 is you want to make your resume relevant. At the end of the day, it's all about having relevant keywords, relevant messaging. Second is the A. You want to make it accomplishments oriented. So this is things that you've done that you're really proud of. Start with powerful adjectives, right? You develop, created, built. Try to avoid words like helped, coordinated, supported if you can. It is a bit more administrative. If you want to really demonstrate the leadership capabilities on you, use stronger adjectives there or action verbs. Next is you want to talk about the results, right? Results focus. So this is really a focus on the metrics of success. So in your role, what employers care about. If you can track that, that's great. If you don't, Do what best you can. But if the more tangible you can have with results, the more compelling it's going to be. When I was at Google, I'm not kidding you, like they really, like the employer really, really want me to find out like what are the specific accomplishments and results. It can't be fluffy. Essentially, it's like avoid the fluff and make it factual and make it compelling. Like I was trained to write like that. So if you really want to stand out as top talent, like you really need to ask hard and think about like what are some of the things that I can really highlight to make myself stand out. Last, the E. It's easy to screen. So this is all about the formatting of your resume, the design, the look and feel of it. Simple things like, are your dates, employment dates, like aligned to the right-hand side? I've seen a lot of you have it on the left-hand side. I highly recommend, just from my experience as a recruiter, I prefer it on the right-hand side. It's just much easier. Bold the dates as well. Be very clear with like the company name, the job title, it's bolded, so it's super clear. You can differentiate by having one of them caps and one of them non-caps as well. Have really clear sections as well. Have a balance in the way you use bullets. Usually my rule of thumb is maximum 5 bullets per role. Okay, when you have more than 5, it's like a laundry list and it does not become memorable at all. So try to really keep it within 5 and really have a balance between each role that you're presenting as well. I recently met an undergrad. She has a design background and her resume was a simple, like a black and white with a little bit of like navy blue as their headings. But the look of it looked really nice just because even just the spacing in between each heading was well thought out. You can tell like she has a design background just because of the look, but it was just a simple black and white with like a little bit of a color of the headings there. So just spend a little bit more time on that. Like once you finish writing it, the formatting would take time, and try out different templates to see what's going to get you better results. Okay. So let's move into the next step. Step 7 is to develop your LinkedIn profile. Right? So now that you updated your resume, the next is LinkedIn profile. I mentioned earlier that over 90% of the recruiters use LinkedIn to search talent. So if you have only what I call a bare bones profile, a skeleton profile, it's hard to be searchable and it's not going to be as marketable. So optimize your LinkedIn profile. This is also going to help you with networking if you have a more attractive profile there. Number 1 is you want to have a sharp professional picture, right? This is the first impression, right? You look sharp and professional, warm, friendly, and inviting. Have a catchy tagline, right? So instead of just your job title or the fact that you are, or just the fact that you're like completing school, like have something catchy, like what will pique interest? Like think of this as like the marketing soundbite that will pique interest there. Have an authentic bio summary. So this is where you can really stand out by having a personal story, telling them more about who you are, what you care about, what you are great at. Give a little bit story that will invite people want to connect, that will pique curiosity. Okay. I'll tell you, as a recruiter, when I'm looking and recruiting, the first thing we really look at, we see is the picture, your name, the tagline. And then if it piques interest and I'll click further, the next I'm going to look at is your bio summary. Right? If you can write a good story, especially if you're looking to make a career change of why you want to make a change and tell a little bit of story, it's going to make a huge difference. Most of the people do not have one. I would say at least even 80% of profiles of you don't even have one. So when you have one, that's how you're going to stand out. Progressive work experience. Right? So this is where you want to showcase how you progressed in your career. Right? Give a little bit of more information and insights of what did you do in each role, what are some of the proud accomplishments there. Optimize with keywords to be searchable. So this is where you want to sprinkle the keywords throughout your tagline, your bio, and in each roles that you've had as well. Right? It is part of like an algorithm game as well. Like the more keywords you have, the more likely you're going to be ranked in the first, like 10 pages there. Right? Typically, just my experience in recruiting as well. Typically, like, when I'm searching, usually it's really, we're only really viewing like the first 10, 20 pages, and that's about it. And so I remember like, that example I was telling you, the client who worked in government and wanted to move to tech, once he updated his LinkedIn profile with the keywords, I don't even remember what the exact percentage, but his profile views like was a ridiculous increase in percentage. And he was like at the top, like pretty much like next to the CEO being searched. Like he was able to like, get that rating there. So if you take some time to really optimize your profile, it's really gonna make a huge difference to get found, to network, and to generate opportunities as well. Step 8 is to develop your outreach messages. Okay, so now that you've got your LinkedIn profile updated, this is where you're preparing for networking. You want to really think about what are your outreach messages, right? For cold contacts and warm contacts. So this is the initial outreach. And the purpose of this, it's not supposed to be like a long essay. You really want to keep it short and simple, right? Acknowledge, a little bit about the profile, state your purpose of why you're reaching out, have a call to action of if you want to meet with them, like ask them a question, whether they're willing to meet with you for a 20, 30-minute coffee chat, whether in person or virtually. Okay, so have different version for cold or warm, just because usually warm contact, you're probably making a more personable, casual tone there. You also want to have a follow-up note, like once they respond, what are you going to say? Like this is where you can maybe attach your resume, you want to thank them, write all that out. And then you also want to have a thank you note, like after you meet with them, what's your thank you message? These are great templates to write out because this is really going to save you time when it comes to networking. This is something I've learned as a recruiter. Writing out these templates ahead of time will save you a ton of time. And it's also going to get you more strategic and thoughtful of how you want to communicate and present yourself. Okay. You could just easily type these in like a Google document and have like a copy and paste afterwards and tweak as you go. All right, step 9 is to develop your list of people to network with. So this is all, we talk about how networking is one of the most effective ways to get hired, especially if you're looking to make a change in your career, significant change. So we want to create a list of 100 plus people. This is where I got to give you a challenge. It may sound a lot, but the reality is, and I've shared with many of you, is that you're probably only going to get 20 to 30% response rate. And out of that, only about a half of them will be willing to chat with you. So about a dozen people there out of 100. Okay. So brainstorm a list of your family, friends, colleagues, mentors, classmates, alumni, peers, recruiters, hiring managers, influencers, and connectors of people that you want to meet who work at your target company or in your target profession. Okay. Take the time to do this exercise. A lot of you don't do this, I would say, and I think you'd be surprised of, the people that you know or the people that they may know. If you're in school, there's a lot of classmates here who have great experience that you can also tap into. You never know who they know as well, just getting to know them. I would say that when you're first starting networking, start with people who are what I call your peer level, where you can really learn about the day-to-day responsibilities, the culture, the interview process. Get comfortable with that first, like where you're getting your feet wet. Talk to at least like half a dozen people. And once you gain more confident and you are ready to pitch yourself, that's when you can reach out to recruiters and hiring managers and influencer and connectors. Like these are people who would have a say in hiring. So you want to do some prep work first by talking to people to learn the day-to-day. And once you get to that next level of networking, you want to be able to think about like, what is your story? What do you really want to say to showcase that you've already done some research already? Okay. So I challenge you to do this. It's going to make a huge difference in the results that you're going to yield in terms of opportunities. I once had, this was last year, a client last year. He was a new grad and he really wanted to get into investment banking. And it was very competitive, to get into investment banking. He didn't graduate from one of the top business schools. So I think that was also like also a challenge in terms of getting opportunities to get into a top investment banking firm. He ended up, he worked with me, but he ended up at the end, he talked to over close to 200 people in the industry and then eventually got hired into Credit Suisse. But what's great about it being a new grad, he met tons of people along the way as part of his job search. He learned a lot. And once he got a foot in the door now, his next opportunity is going to be so much easier just because, one, he's working for a big brand name company. But second, he's already got like over 100 people in his network in that industry that he can tap into. And when he got hired, he wrote thank you notes to every single person that he met to thank them for supporting his job search journey, to really nurture the relationship and to stay in touch. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. I really want to encourage you to think about networking or relationship building as a long-term strategic plan to advance your career, especially if you are new to the country. Start now. It's never too late. When I moved here to Canada from Hong Kong all by myself when I was 16, I had a zero network, and I just really had to build along the way. And because of my background in recruiting, like I've been able to meet a ton of people through my work here, and have built a very strong network now here on LinkedIn of people that I can easily tap into. So I really want to encourage you to make this as part of not just your job search plan, but your overall career advancement strategy. Okay. Okay, so we're approaching the end now, so feel free to type in questions you have because I'll open the floor up to Q&A afterwards here. So step 10 is that you want to dedicate time to practice your interview messages, right? So once you start doing the networking, you also want to make time to practice your interview messages. A lot of times, you may have an interview come up, you just go in and just go in for the interview, but make sure you actually practice as well, not just writing out your answers, but actually practice with someone and get feedback on your delivery and your tone of voice and body language. The key things to keep in mind: you want to master your glowing introduction, which we talked about earlier. Identify at least 5 to 7 relevant stories or examples that you can use throughout the interview to sell yourself. Okay, these are like the tangible, compelling examples. Know your whys, because they want to know your motivation, right? Why the change? Why this industry? Why this company? Why this role? And why you? Get really clear on your whys. Okay, I really want to point out the difference here is where I see a common mistake that people make. The difference between why you versus why this role. Why this role is, why do you want this job? Okay, so this is where you really talk about your motivation. Why you is, why should they hire you? So this is more like pitching yourself. Right? So it is more like a sales message than talking about your motivation there. So make sure you're really clear on that difference there. Anticipate the type of interview questions that you may get, right? Based on the job, like in terms of the hiring requirements, you can anticipate the type of questions they want to find out. Usually there's things related to conflict management, problem solving, teamwork, communications. If you're more in a creative role, it could be about innovation, creativity. So you just anticipate those type of questions there. You want to speak with assertiveness, confidence, and enthusiasm. This is so key. Like part of differentiated high potential talent is coming across as that you are excited, that you're polished, and that you have what it takes. Okay. When I was recruiting at Google, when I was in debrief meetings, like calibration meetings with hiring managers, we would talk about the candidates who have already gone through like 3 hours of interviews, like 4 back-to-back interviews. And one of the common feedback I always hear was about, that person lacking the fire in them, meaning like really that passion or that enthusiasm that they really want the job. So you really want to ask yourself in terms of your energy level when you're going into an interview, are you coming across that you are excited about the opportunity, that you're passionate about it? And there's a difference between passion versus desperate, right? So it's all in terms of your tone, your body language, your eye contact, and smile. These are things that you really want to pay attention to as well. Okay, so let's wrap up, the 10 steps to master your job search summary. If you want to take a screenshot of the slide, like this is probably a good summary slide for you to help you think about or to help you tackle your job search effectively. Step 1, discover your essence of who you are, what you want, what's important to you. Step 2, determine what you are searching for. What are your targeted ROIs? Step 3, do your research. Step 4, decide on the methods of your search. Step 5, develop your career story. Okay. What makes you interesting, inspiring, and impressive? Step 6, develop your resume, make it a marketable document. Step 7, develop your LinkedIn profile so that it's optimized and searchable. Step 8, develop your outreach messages so that you can be efficient and effective in networking. Step 9, develop your list of people to network with. So find people who are in your targeted profession or industry or companies that you want to connect with. And lastly, Dedicate time to practice your interview messages so that you come across as clear, concise, compelling, and convincing. Okay, so these are the 10 steps to help you master your job search. I hope you find this helpful, that you have now a game plan of how you can go about tackling your job search effectively. To accelerate your job search success, you must have a plan. You need to be well prepared, practice your messages a lot, and be proactive with your outreach. Okay, don't be passive. My favorite saying is you got to own your greatness, stand out to get higher. So this is all about believing yourself, like believe that you have what it takes. Okay, because people can feel that energy in you. So here's a challenge for you. Now that you've gone through this training with me, I want to make sure that you take action. Okay, so here's some things I want to challenge you to do. Okay, and feel free to type in any questions as I'll be answering questions live soon. Identify one specific thing you can do to improve your mindset, marketing, messaging, and meeting people. What would that be? What's that one thing that you're going to want to start doing after this training? Update your resume and LinkedIn profile with more tangible accomplishments and results. Okay? Make it more attractive and wow. Write and practice your glowing introduction. This is the elevator pitch. Research and brainstorm a list of at least 100 people you want to network with. Okay? Put together a spreadsheet. Book at least 10 informational interviews. Okay? Schedule them. And this could be a call or in person, video, whatever works. Okay? The point here is for you to gather insights and start talking to people. Identify 5 to 7 relevant examples to use in an interview. Okay? So get really clear of your stories that you want to showcase. Okay? Take action. Okay? Nothing's going to work if you don't do the work. Okay? Make sure you take massive actions. If you're here, it's because you know you need to work on something, and I'm pretty sure and confident there are something that you can do to really help you improve your marketability and accelerate your job search success. Okay, here's my encouraging message for you as I wrap up here is believe in yourself, that you matter, that your life has purpose, your story is important, your dreams count, your voice matters. You were born to make an impact. Okay, so believe that you have what it takes. Don't give up. Even though you may be discouraged, find an accountability partner that could motivate you, empower you, and encourage you as well. Okay, celebrate your small wins and progress along the way. Track your progress as well. Okay. Okay, so if you want more accountability, I invite you to join my free 10-day job search mastery challenge. So this is where I'll send you 10 emails over 10 days of things that you can do to master your job search. So it'll be similar to what you've already learned here, but if you want a bit more accountability, I invite you. You can just go to this website here, www.mymarketability.com/career-boost/challenge. Okay, feel free to take a screenshot of this if you like. Just go to the site here and you'll receive a daily email from me to help you really get motivated and excited about your job search. Okay. And if you want more insights, more tips, head on over to my website, www.mymarketability.com. I have a free resource link that you can click on at the bottom of my site. I have over 200 blog posts that I've written about on resumes, LinkedIn, job search, career planning, you name it. So just head on over. There are tons of resources that you can find. I've done tons of webinars as well. So just take advantage of those. If you want to stay in touch, email me at info@mymarketability.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. I usually post videos on a weekly basis on tips related to career, job search, or personal life experiences there. Okay. So I hope you find this helpful today. Feel free to continue to ask me questions. I'm just going to go back into my live mode. All right. Hello, hello. Thank you for being here live with me. All right, so we have about 25 minutes for Q&A. Let me look at the questions here on my computer, and I'll answer the questions. Okay, so let me see. Okay, I'm just gonna go one by one here. Okay, so the question is about interview prep. Where can I find role-specific interview questions? Part of it, you can do your research. You can go onto what's it called, Glassdoor.com to see like what questions that people will type out that they've got. But to be honest with you, a lot of times it could be general. At the same time, based on the role that you're targeting, if you have talked to people in that job, you should be able to get some more specific insights of type of questions. Even though they're just specifics, a lot of times they are tweaked based on general questions, right? What I encourage you to do is either you talk to people who've been in that role before or worked at that company, or go into like a Glassdoor.com to find specific type of questions. I know they do vary. Like I'll give you an example. I know, for example, like at Google, for example, like they'll have more what do you call it? Either situational type of questions or brain teaser type of questions that is not as general. But you can also do research to find those type of questions there. Those questions can definitely throw you off. What's key here, I would say, whenever you get thrown off by an interview question, don't feel like you need to answer the question right away. Take a moment to think, breathe, and pause. Write out your thought process before you respond. Okay? Oftentimes, I find people want to respond right away, and it's not the case. They really want to understand your thought process. Okay. Let's see here. So the next question is, does only having numbers to back up performance help, or do official certificates received for the performance work too? In short, what if the performance is more qualitative than quantitative? Well, if your performance is more qualitative, then highlight that. Talk about the what was the outcome of it. Even if you don't have numbers, you just tell the story of what it was. Okay, definitely that's a great. It's like a story. Essentially, you want to tell a great story. Official certificate. You don't need official certificates to back up. But essentially, it's how you're going to tell the story that's going to make it interesting for people there. Okay. My point here is that you don't want your whole resume to just be responsibilities based, meaning you just did this, but it's like, well, what happened? Like, what was the outcome of it? Do you know how you add value at the end of the day? Okay. So I don't think what kind of example can I give you here? Because sometimes people tell me, well, I don't know what the company results were because they don't tell me or whatever that is. Well, then you could think about your own personal track record, right? This is where you need to track and do a little bit of tracking. So I'm just thinking what an example would be. So I'm just thinking in my line of work, right? I may not track all like the salaries that people get based on their jobs, but I can track, I have an idea based on the number of clients I've worked with. I have an idea of how many people have got job offers, right? Or how many people I've worked with over the years, right? So I can use a number like that based on my own tracking there. So if you think about in a company, if you'd created like a new, I don't know, let's say that you had a successful event, for example, you may not know, I don't know if you don't know how much money was spent or raised, but you can maybe talk about like the outcome of how many people came out to the event and how that has led to like, additional business, for example, even though you may not know that number. But you can tell a story in a way that makes it that you have actually added value or made an impact. Okay. Next question. Should you leave out non-relevant experience while applying for a job? So it depends. I think at the end of the day, you want to make it as relevant as possible. But if you have the non-relevant experience, that's going to make you a huge career gap, like a employment gap. Then you got to think about maybe you want to keep that short and just put a career note around that. At the end of the day, the real thumb is you should really have mainly the relevant experience. But if it's going to, if you take it out, it's going to make it have that people are going to raise a question, a red flag. Then you should consider how you're going to convey that experience in just like a one-liner there. What are my thoughts on cover letters? Are they really important? You have a friend who got many interviews and landed a job without the cover letter. My thoughts on cover letters, to be honest, like as a recruiter, definitely is the resume first, LinkedIn profile first, then cover letter. The cover letter is good when you're making, like, say, a significant career change and you really want to tell a story that you cannot tell in a resume. It's good to use as a recruiter at the end. Let's just say that when they have like 2 top candidates and they're trying to decide which one to go with when everything is really close match, and the cover letter could be a way to stand out. I don't think it's like the most important. If a job doesn't require a cover letter and application, you don't need a cover letter unless they really state so. Okay, because I know it takes time to write a really good cover letter. In fact, what I would say, instead of a cover letter, just think of like, a great email to write. If you're going to get someone to refer you, think about a short, brief message where they can actually use to refer you. What I call it's like your top 3 unique selling points. Like tell a little bit story about who you are, where you're at in your life and career, what you're looking for, and a summary about you. That's much easier to write than to write a really strong cover letter. It's good to have, but it's not a must-have. Okay. Next question. I've been told that numbers in a resume make it very impactful. How do interviewers verify those numbers? For instance, a line in resume like improve process line by 10%. Yes. So first of all, yes, numbers are important, but how do you verify? Well, this is where part of when, as a recruiter or interviewer, this is where, whether they do their diligence and probing further, right? They can't obviously verify it unless they really call through the references or really check in detail. But this is at the end of the day, how you as the interviewee are able to elaborate further, right? An experienced recruiter can tell if some of the what do you call it? Let's just say if you have too many impressive results that sound too good to be true, an experienced recruiter can tell and probe that out. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is don't just make up a number that doesn't make sense, because if you're not able to back it up, you're going to get screened out. Okay. At the end of the day, you still want to be honest there. A good recruiter can definitely tell that. I think what I've learned is you really want to avoid any discrepancies, right? Because a discrepancy is just going to show, if they catch that, you can just be out the game there. Right? I'll give you an example. Like I've seen, I found candidates on LinkedIn and it says that they're still employed. And then when I talk to them on the phone or when they send me their resume, I found out that they're no longer employed. So they try to make themselves more attractive on LinkedIn to get calls. But then when they get on the phone, the recruiter finds out they're no longer employed. And that could raise a red flag, because the concern would be in terms of honesty there. So I would avoid doing something like that, right? Really try to avoid any discrepancy. Okay, good stuff. Any other questions? So I'm curious to know, share with me, like since, quite a few are still here, like what's one thing that you're going to start doing today after this webinar? What's one action item that you want to do? Or what's one thing that you learned from today's webinar? So the next question here. Could you please give some advice for the ones who have work experience outside of Canada, no work experience to type in a complete cover letter or highlight specifics? Hold on. Advice for those who have work experience outside Canada. So international experience, no experience here, and with some gap years. Okay, so first of all, if you have international experience or you don't have Canadian experience, an example, obviously you still want to convey the experience that you have. And there is a preference. Employers do prefer having some local experience. So, as you're just starting getting your feet wet, like think about the volunteer experience that you can do, whether if you're in school in terms of being part of student clubs or things that you can do in the community to gain some experience and build your network. But I would say when you're trying to communicate the experience or document experience in a resume, you still want to highlight the experience you've had. I've seen some of you who actually try to hide the location or the country of where you had the work experience. I don't recommend that. I think it's okay to really highlight like where you worked at the end of the day. But I do understand the challenge, like, being either an international student or someone who is new to Canada. At the end of the day, what's really important is you have to put yourself out there just because you have a small network. So not a lot of people know about you, right? You really want to tap into your own local community to build your network and get referrals that way. The reason why, it's not because they don't want to hire people without Canadian experience. I think it's more that you want to really build your confidence and build your communication skills and really adapt to like the Canadian, like the culture as well, to showcase that you're adaptable, that you're coachable, that you are versatile as well. In some instances, like companies really value the international experience as well, depending on companies, right? So this is where you can have a competitive edge and highlighting that. At the end of the day, you really want to ask yourself, what can you leverage to get your foot in the door? Don't worry too much about getting what I call the dream job at first. Instead, get into that right company where you have opportunities to learn and grow. Get a good boss who can really mentor you and coach you and guide you along the way. The other part was with gap years. So it depends on how long the gap is, but whenever you have a gap, put a career note, just write career note, and put the note, like, why was your gap? Like, were you on, let's say, for example, like mat leave, or you took a sabbatical, whatever that is, or you went traveling around the world. Just highlight that a little bit so people see like why there was a gap. If it's only for like a couple months or within a year, I think that's fine. If it's more than like a year, like 2 years, 3 years, I've worked with people who was big gap, like 5 years, 10 years, because like someone was like a stay-at-home mom, for example, and we just put that, and that's totally fine as well there. Okay. The key here is you want to be able to tell a story, right? That makes sense when people read it. Next question. Google's application system allows a small space for cover letter on the application, and many other companies do as well. Is expectation type in a complete cover letter or highlight specifics? Honestly, that's a judgment call. It really depends. If they have it, if they say it's optional, then you don't need to. To me, if you're going to submit something, submit the best version. Okay, meaning don't just submit a half-ass cover letter. If you're going to submit it, make sure it's polished. It's something that you are proud of. Okay, it's either you don't submit or you submit one that looks amazing, because it's going to be part of your profile in the database there. Okay. Like I can tell you, like when I worked at Google, anything that you submit online is trackable. Like even the emails that you communicate with a recruiter, everything is tracked. It's all in part of your profile, so they can see everything. So honestly, the way you communicate in an email, the way with anything that you submit, it's all part of your package there. Okay, so that's something you want to keep that in mind. Like, are you presenting your best self? Is that the best version of you that you can showcase? All right, next one. If we're trying for 2 types of roles and you have your 2 resumes tailored for those 2 roles, what do you put on LinkedIn there? That's a good question. So where you're going to have to really tweak is what you're going to have to find is like, what is the common, what's common, right? And essentially also assess which one has more priority for you to focus on, right? At the end of the day, like you're going to have to give priority. Like you don't want it to be confusing, and you got to really think about if you're looking to make a change, meaning a big change in the profession, your bio summary is a great way to tell the story of why you want to make a change. Just because by looking at your experience, people cannot tell you want to go from, let's say, marketing to operations or vice versa. Okay, so the bio summary is where you really do the most tweaking in terms of tailoring and telling your story. The story that's really going to connect the dots together. Okay. And then from a work experience standpoint, you're going to have to pick the one that's going to be most generic, that can be applicable to both there. Okay. What's an example? I had a client recently. I have a client right now, actually. She works at a bank in capital markets as informational specialist. And something she's interested in, like, because what she does essentially is like business intelligence, marketing intelligence type of work, right? And she's also interested in applying for a role in academia as a librarian. But she was also interested in like startups or corporations. So very different when you think of resume profiles. And we were deciding, well, what do you put on LinkedIn? And the conclusion was that that we know, or I know, that in academia, they're less likely to look at a LinkedIn profile, right? Just because they're more likely to go through the formal application system. So the profile we decided is to really tailor to more for corporations or startups, where we use words around business intelligence, market research, consumer insights, those kind of language, more corporate language on LinkedIn there. Okay. Good questions, guys. I love this. Keep them coming, all right? Okay, what's the next one here? If you have a smaller or mid-sized company in your target list that aren't posting jobs for months, do you think there's still potential from networking to get a job? Well, it depends. So what you can do, so if they're not posting, right, that means they might not be hiring. But what you can do is look on LinkedIn and see, like, when did people join, right? When did people join companies? I would say that whether you should still network, I mean, for sure, if this is something a company you're interested in, definitely have a conversation and find out, like, where are they at right now? Like, when could hiring be happening? If they haven't had it for months, like, could it be like end of the year? So you just have to find out, I would say. But for sure, I would say you want to give priority to companies that are hiring now if you are in the phase where you're looking for something now. Now, if you're looking for something for, like, say, next year, it's hard to tell. Like, things change all the time. So this is where you want to stay in touch with people there. Okay. I'll give you an example. Like, when I was recruiting at Google, when I first started, the roles that I recruited for were more account executive level. So they were looking for very experienced people, at least 10 years experience to get into account executives. But I had a lot of great people that I met who were more at the account manager level, account coordinator level. So more that 5-7 years of experience. And I didn't have anything for them, right? But those people who are really eager and passionate about working for the company, they would stay in touch with me. So every 2-3 months, they would check in and say hello. Let me know that they're still interested. And literally year end, like I remember December, all of a sudden 20 plus roles open at the account manager level. So more the junior level. And so guess what? The people who I reached out first were the people who've been staying in touch with me. Okay, so this was like 10 months later since I joined, like all of a sudden, like a lot of roles opened up. So this is where that persistency comes in, where the relationship building comes in, the nurturing your network comes in. Like, you have to be patient to see, like, whether, like, to have something unfold there. Okay. Now, if for smaller companies, sometimes they may not post because they don't have an HR team, they don't have a recruiter. So just keep that in mind. Like, sometimes you may just need to, like, honestly tap into, like, reach out to the hiring manager, have a chat, send in your resume for them to keep you in mind. Like, it's the old school way. They don't really have a database or system per se. Like, they haven't invested in that. So you really just have to go the old school way of just traditional email, traditional, like, networking to uncover those opportunities. And it happens all the time. Okay. Great. So I love it. Short-term goal following this webinar: introspection work on resume and LinkedIn, attend networking events. Amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Is it Shashan? Thank you very much for hearing that. It's amazing. Big, great goal. Next question: how can we know company hierarchy from outside to know where relevant roles are and then reach out to the right people? That's a good question. Like, when you're just starting out, you won't really know. And this is part of testing. You're gonna have to really test things out. I'll use an example, like big companies like banks, for example. It's huge departments, right? But what you wanna do is at least narrow down, like, for example, is it commercial banking or retail banking that you're interested in, or like capital markets? You wanna narrow it down to that. And then through that, leverage LinkedIn. So use the keyword search to go find people as close as possible, right, to start. Because when you're just starting out, you're not going to get it right. But this is why, like, when you target big companies, you need to you should be targeting at least a dozen people per company, because they're so big, they don't know everything. And you just have to get started, like, talk to them and ask them if they can share a little bit more insights about the org structure, the hierarchy, to learn a little bit more. So it's kind of like you get closer and closer as you talk to more people, right? The first 3-5, You're just kind of like dabbling, like learning a little bit. And then by like, hopefully by the third or fifth, whatever conversation, you're going to get closer to the area that you're really interested in. Okay. Yeah, you won't know at the very beginning there. Like, I think this is where even recruiters sometimes you won't know, like, especially big companies, whether they recruit for the roles that you're interested in. Like if you look at the big banks, they have like probably hundreds of recruiters. But at least if you get a foot in the door with one person, they can point you in the right direction there, somewhere closer to the department. Okay. Good stuff. Any other questions I missed? Was this helpful today? Did you learn a lot? I hope so. I really want to thank a lot of you. Like if I've had a chance to meet with you in person or even if we chatted through email, thank you so much for coming into my life and letting me like serve you as well. Please do stay in touch. If I don't get to see you before my last day here at Schulich tomorrow, email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear about your career journey and progression. And if you need any advice or tips, please feel free to reach out to me anytime as well. Great. I'm so glad to hear that this was helpful. Definitely yes. So glad to hear that. Share this with your friends. If they haven't attended this webinar today, feel free to share with them. You have the link there. If you know anyone who is struggling with their job search, share this with them. Everything that I share with you today is really what I've learned like, as a recruiter and also as a career coach. Like I have seen a lot of firsthand experience and as a recruiter, like what it really takes to make yourself stand out, especially if you're going for very competitive type of roles. You really need to constantly ask yourself, like, what can I do to take it a notch, to the next level, to improve myself? And don't give up. Like you have to have that, positive attitude as well. People can tell like whether you're desperate versus like whether you are confident there. So always make sure that you check in with your own mindset in terms of where you're at. And this is why I when I meet with or work with job seekers who have been recently laid off, and 50% of the people I work with have been laid off by organizations. And this has been happening like the last 10 years. It's so important to take some downtime to recover and recruit, like process all the emotion and energy before you get back into the job search game. So if you've been in the job search game for quite some time, give yourself a little break. It's totally okay. Okay. Like, cause you need downtime to recruit and take that break in order to get yourself back out there again. Okay. In the summertime, the job search is a bit slower. Okay. Just because of the summer, people are usually away. However, it is a fantastic time to network because usually people are in a better mood. They have more free time. They're more likely to meet in person, have a drink or a beer with you. So take advantage of this season to go put yourself out there to meet with people. Okay. And nurture those relationships. Okay. Good. You're very welcome, guys. I'm so glad to see many of you here today. Thank you for the well wishes as well. I really appreciate it. That I have the opportunity to serve you. I honestly, it's just so much fun. I learned so much as well. I just decided I need to focus in my own business and focus on my own health as well, and to have time to take care of my kids there. So thank you for all of you for your time. And please do stay in touch. All right. So bye for now. Cheers.